Okay, so this is the DB podcast, the Dark Podcast. Whatever's within the darkness shines within the light, and when you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you. Read the fucking screen. Okay, cool. So the Stranger Things, once again, the reason why they represented the girl 11 while she was small, and you're like, why the fuck does she have to be abused and she's fucking little like this? What the fuck, bro? I mean, who cares what her mom was doing? This is not her fault. But the reason why her mom was able to go into that program, and most likely this is, and if you, right, don't even try to argue, because like with yourself, obviously, because don't even try to argue with yourself. When you saw Eleven's mom, that lady looked autistic as fuck. The one that they thought was Eleven's mom, she looked autistic as fuck. Anyways, like I ain't gonna lie, like if you know, if you know what an autistic person looks like when they're not masking, she looked like that, even though she was physically impaired. Um, I don't think I've ever. I think even if you studied those who were put in special ed and they're autistic, they have a certain look. Because not everyone that's special ed is autistic, but the ones that are, they have a certain kind of appearance. Because even though they're physically impaired, like you can tell, like oh, you're like here, but you're not, right? And then that's where you get the tapes of the autistic people basically being able to use telepathy and shit. I mean, that's actually a real thing, and how they were able to kind of communicate with one another, even though they weren't using verbal words, they weren't vocalizing actually. They were using vibrations and frequencies and tone. They were tapping into the to deeper states of the mind, and they were able to communicate with each other as they were in deeper dimensions, as what mortals refer to as sleeping, but it's really truly called resting and rejuvenating, recharging and shit. Um, they basically informed the typical minds, um, other mortals, that okay, we're in the fourth dimension and we're always talking with one another. Like, why would you think that we don't know how to talk or communicate? We don't comprehend. The thing was, the reason why they were physically impaired, it wasn't because they were slow. It was because their brains, their spirits were such at a deeper state of mind, they didn't need to use their physical form, or they didn't even realize they were in a physical form. And I and 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 so they were so basically, if you're like homeless and you're fucking doing drugs and shit, or you're in an orphanage, which orphan to homeless pipe, so-called homeless, what more refer to a homeless pipeline is strong too. What they do is they'll be studying and doing experiments and tests on them, which is why the orphanage and homeless to military pipeline is very strong as well. I mean, not very strong, but more refer to as strong. Yeah, is because they studied the brainwaves, and the brainwaves would indicate the basically the capacity of the spirit residing within the mind. So they'll tell you that your mind exists within your brain. No, it doesn't. Um, it's actually your spirit is reflected by your heart. Your spirit exists within your gut, though. Your soul exists within your heart, and then um, your mind is reflected by like basically the brain waves are a reflection of the mind. Okay, so the mind was surrounding, once again, the avatar temple, the vessel that it's that it is inhabiting temporarily, anyways, and them using frequency devices is how they're able to detect the charge that is being emitted from the heart, the gut, and the brain. Barely the gut, because they don't know how to fucking read intuition. Because the gut is magnetic, but the brain is electric. So they're reading electrical frequencies. In the previous episode, I did refer to how they use like electrical magnetic devices. It wasn't electromagnetic, it was just electric, because mortals they don't know how to manipulate magnetism, because they don't have a soul. Soul is magnetic. They don't know how to fucking, I mean, this is how they put it: we don't know how the fucking soul works, type shit. Like, that's how they would put it. actually, is what I'm referring to. But they do know how to kind of like, because we the fallen ones gave them that technology to basically be able to detect electricity, because they have synthetic spirits. So of course they would be able to kind of manipulate them to using electrical means of creating what portals, reading what frequencies and tones. So when you know the tone, how deep the tone is, you know how in tuned one is within the mind. And the frequency is the reflection of what? The spirit within that mind. Okay? But the radiation is that's a soul thing. They don't know how to fucking read magnetism. They'll tell you that they can do radio or radio wave. They'll use radio wave like technology to kind of read like the radiation and shit. That is not the that shit barely works. Like they don't know. They have no clue how strong their radiation is, which is why they prefer to wear like mask and fucking plastic to fuck up the electrical output, which is the frequency, so that way that they won't die if they're close to any radioactive anything, which is not an issue for the immortals, the gods, the goddesses, titans, primordials that aren't fallen, that are still divine, yet are still in their divine state. But for mortals, that wouldn't work, because they don't have the magnetism to kind of radiate in that depth of frequency and tone. Whereas it appears to be that even mortals who are classified to be on the spectrum are able to access or kind of like manipulate that shit, basically wield their minds at will. And this was discovered in the autism like tapes or some shit like that, whatever the fuck they call it. Was it the gateway tapes or some shit like that, or whatever it was? As they were studying their brain waves and how they were communicating with one another, they found out that when they rest, they're lucid dreaming. They can fucking do anything in there that typical mortals don't do. And along with the immortal incarnates as well, they had even deeper access, which is why they did the Tuskegee experiments, which is why they've been experimenting in the hood and shit in the streets. And they just happened to find out that even mortals with a deeper electrical charge can access, these dimensions, which is why 11 was fucking YT. Anyways, so, but the ones with souls were astral projecting and shit. So that right there, that's why they trafficked a lot of skin folk type shit. You get what I'm saying? Like a lot of what they used to call colored folk. You did, which before that they called them copper colored. So copper. This is why they traffic a lot of copper colored brothers and sisters, basically gods and goddesses and shit. And even if they're kids, and why a lot of them, are orphanages, and why the prison orphanage pipeline and the military and homeless pipeline is strong, is because it's deep, is because they orchestrated it that way, so they have free samples to experiment with whenever they feel like. I'm not gonna rationalize their logic as to why they're using souls and spirits to kind of create portals and whatnot, and travel through realms. But if you're uninformed, the military weaponizes psychological abilities to do psychic warfare with other so-called, what mortals refer to as other nations. They want you to believe there are other nations, so that way they can run underground, like what they believe to be called secret experiments, undercover shit, operations. So-called secret operations, actually, so that they can do psychological warfare, defeat the so-called enemy. Yeah.